Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday once again at 8 a.m. Central Time, which means this is Listening with Your Eyes LinkedIn Live. I am Allison Henderson, your host for today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you are joining us after the fact, please make sure that you still comment and ask questions. I will do my best to answer them even after the broadcast. But if you're here and you have a burning question about presentations today, that is our topic. I'm going to be sharing the 3 top tips that I give and work with every one of my clients on because I feel like they are so important for nailing presentations. And this can be any type of presentation. Certainly works for keynotes and even virtual keynotes, which are kind of another breed in a sense that people are getting used to. They work for the TEDx speakers that I work with all the time. And I should give a shout out to my new bling up here. The little gal is the Telly Award that the TEDx Wrigleyville team won, one of the 4 silvers that we were recipients of this year, which is super exciting. And it just came yesterday in the mail, which got me thinking, okay, presentations. I love to coach speakers, just love, love, love it. And what are those 3 top tips that could be really helpful for those of you on LinkedIn or Facebook or are watching this on the YouTube channel? This is one that I think you will definitely want to watch to the end and share with your friends. So I'd appreciate you giving the shout out and sharing it as well, because many, many people are giving presentations every day. These tips, as I mentioned, even if you're going into a meeting with your team, if you just think about these 3 things, it's going to make your meeting presentation more impactful. And these are the ones that I think often are ignored because we go into the meeting and we have our slides, or we spent 5 minutes putting 5 slides together on what you're supposed to talk about because you didn't have time to necessarily prepare as much. But if we would just take 15 minutes to prepare for the 3 things that I'm going to tell you, it will definitely go a long way in your team listening to the presentation, to them taking action on what it is that you're telling them to do or asking them to contribute on. And it will make you more confident going in, which will certainly be something that is noticed and is looked upon when promotions are handed out. Who is the one that they want to move into a higher leadership position? Often it is the person that has smoother presentations because that's the face time that they have with folks up the chain. And if you come in and you don't have those presentation skills, often you are not necessarily top on the list to be promoted. It's just a fact. So what are these 3 tips? Number 1 is your opening. And I know this may be something that you only think about when it's a prepared speech or the keynote and those sorts of things. And I think it is way too often overlooked. And I have probably talked about it before. I'm not sure if I've talked about it in our LinkedIn Lives. That's something I really should do, is go back to my LinkedIn Lives and jot down what I talk about every week. But this opening, where I see people blow it is they merge styles together, which means they are talking and walking at the same time, or moving and talking at the same time, when it's not purposeful, or they are, if they've stopped, they're not taking a moment to look at their audience. They're not taking a moment to take it in and to smile and to breathe before they start. So what does this look like? When the baton is thrown to somebody else and it's their turn with the meeting, you really do need to take a moment to own your stage, whether it's virtual or whether it is on a large stage, a platform of some sort, think about that opening. Some people are fantastic at walking and talking at the same time. They come in with a lot of energy and they're saying hello as they're walking across the stage. And maybe the first line of their talk is given on that cross. And if that is you, that's fine, as long as it's intentional. Other people walk in, take their spot, look at the audience, and then begin. That is another fantastic way to start your presentation. With the TEDx folks that I coach, again, where that little telly came from, is usually we advise to get to the dot. Walk in and smile. Oh, that's another thing. Smile on your entrance and get to the dot. Take your place and then start speaking. Where it becomes mushy is when people get to, for instance, in the TEDx, when they get to the dot, but they start speaking and they haven't really settled in yet. They haven't taken the stage. You, as presenter, need that moment to take that breath and then begin. If you're going to do the walk and talk cross, you take the breath and you settle yourself before you start your cross. And then the end of your cross will flow into the next thing. Or you take the cross in with the first line and then you stop and then you say hello and then you continue. It just needs to be intentional. It just needs to be planned out. And I know you're thinking, for that meeting with my team, I don't need to plan out the first line. Well, it is still going to be your hook. If you've heard about hooks with the media or your talking points, if you've been asked to appear on television or something, that is the same thing with your meeting, and that preparation should still be given to that. Is there a statistic? Is there a shout out, a congratulations for something that your team has done? Somebody on the team that you could lift up and acknowledge? All of those things bring your team together. It encourages them to listen. It engages them because you have planned out that first moment. All right. Tip number 2 is in the middle. Do you see a pattern here? There's kind of a beginning, middle, and end for my 3 tips. The middle needs to follow your impulse. I see too many speakers that have been told, unfortunately, to stifle their natural movement, or the opposite. They've been told, oh, you need more energy. Have you watched Tony Robbins? Have you looked at some other great speaker? Have you watched the recent Shark Tanks? If you are going to be pitching investors or something, right? They pull something out of the blue, a speaker that just comes to mind, somebody that they know or that they've seen. And suddenly you're thinking that you need to perform or live up to these speakers that are paid tens of thousands of dollars for every time that they get up and speak. Well, if that's not the level that you're at, don't necessarily try to emulate something that is not in your wheelhouse. If you don't have the same energy level as a Tony Robbins, if that's not your style, then certainly don't go in doing that. I don't care who is suggesting it. Okay. So the intentional is being true to you, which is my new platform that will be out shortly. I really want you to be true to yourself, which means you can follow your own impulse. If you have the impulse to walk a little bit to your right and talk to somebody in the front row, do it. If then on a transition, walk to the other side. What I see too often is very planned speeches. And it may be that they've worked with a presentation coach that just doesn't have the same philosophy that I do. And, that's okay. It very planned where you walk and talk is something that you can do, but very few speakers can make it look natural, like that was their impulse. Where your impulse is going to be sabotaged is something that we should probably talk about. And your impulse is going to be sabotaged by the people that aren't listening to you. Frankly, there's always going to be a few people that are looking on their phone in the middle of the thing. And it could be legitimate. It could be that they're taking notes on what you're saying. It could be that they're taking a picture of your slide that's up there, but there's always going to be a few that have really checked out. And the way our brain is geared to work, if you listened to my LinkedIn Live from a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about your tribal brain, and I do have the writer of that book, Dr. J, our happiness doctor, is going to be on with us either next week or the week after. He's in California, so we're going to pre-record his and do it a little bit differently. But we are bringing him on to talk about this caveman type brain that is sabotaging your presentations, because that brain is survival mode. It's not interested in your speech. It's not interested in any of that. It's just looking for the people that aren't paying attention. And it's telling your brain, oh my gosh, you need to change your presentation. You need to do XYZ because you have lost your audience. Mayday, mayday, abort, abort. We don't want that to be going through your mind. So how do you prevent it? When you're in the middle of your presentation, you look for the people that are smiling and nodding and following you. And those are the people that you concentrate on. You walk up to the group that's listening. You walk up to that table. Maybe it's a networking luncheon and everybody's at round tables and you're giving the presentation. You can walk up to the table and talk to the ladies and gents that are listening to you. Or if it's a large space and there's a few people in the first couple rows that you can see, focus in on them and use their energy to fuel you and to keep you going. And follow that impulse for where you should move around. The same thing in the conference room, the same thing with your pitches. It's really important to be you and to be authentic. And if you are stifling your natural habits, that's going to come across as less confident or nervous and a lot of other things that you don't want to necessarily be appearing like. Let me see, there's real quick, hold on a second. Stacy is saying hi. Hi, Stacy. Good to see you. Oh, and Stacy has really upped her game on her own presentations, I will tell you. She is a phenomenal illustrator, and she works with groups and organizations with children, because she is all about empowering kids. She has these fantastic journals to get kids writing and to give them confidence. So if any of this is interesting to you, I would definitely have you check out Stacy Montgomery if she is if you are connected to a school, or if you're connected to scouts and libraries and all sorts of places. If you own a small bookstore or a shop that can put her journals in them so that people can purchase, her stuff is fantastic. And I've used them with my own kids. So big shout out to Stacy. Really, she was in some of my early programs, some of my improvisation things, I think, right, Stacy? Some of the classes that were on gaining confidence to go out there and talk to people and give presentations. And she's really done a phenomenal job on that. So we'll get smileys and some thank yous. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we've gotten through the middle, right? And people like Stacy have been keying in, and man, her audience, if you're talking to children, sometimes can be even worse when it comes to keeping their attention, right? Because their attention spans could be short, or maybe they've decided that they don't like to write and draw, or things that she's asking them to do. So she needs to use all of these techniques to continue to connect with her audience. And we get through the middle, and then, of course, we get to the end. And closing, of course, is super important, right? You've heard, open well and close well. You probably heard about that, and people kind of forget what's in the middle. And really, it is true. When you end strong, it's fantastic. And it doesn't have to be kitschy. It doesn't have to sound like it's a line that you give every time you end a presentation. It could become your signature. That's something that if that's true to you, as you'll hear me say a lot, then then that works. If that feels awkward to you, if ending with the same thing, I don't use that technique. So I'm trying to think of if there's anybody I know that always ends on the same line, and nothing is coming to mind right now. But if I were to come up with something and I said something like, thanks for having me, and remember, be true to you. If that's what I say at the end of every single time that I give a keynote or a presentation, then okay, that becomes part of my brand. But you have to make sure that that matches your brand, right? That ending, when they go to your website, then they're going to see true to you, because I've been talking about that. Right now, you're not going to see that on my website because I haven't updated it. So, so I am aware. In that final thing, how else can you end it? Or maybe how do I suggest you don't end it? Many people end their presentations with just taking questions and answers. And I know this is often prescribed by the meeting organizers. They will say, you have 40 minutes for your talk, we have 10 minutes for Q&A, and then they have a 10-minute transition time to the next breakout room or whatever it is. And that kind of stifles what I am about to say. However, you could still use the Q&A, but end it on your own terms. I suggest that you go into Q&A just as they have requested that you do. Or sometimes I even say, I know you're expected there to be Q&A at the end, but I really want to know your questions throughout. So I'm going to ask for your questions as we go. And sometimes I stop in the middle and I say, okay, so are there any questions after this first bit? Because when I'm doing body language, I don't want somebody to be stuck on a question that they've had in mind and have to wait and answer at the end. I want to hear what the question is so that they get that answer and they move on. Even if it's something that's more like a keynote, sometimes I'll break out and I'll say, particularly if I'm seeing confused looks on faces, hey, so who has a question? How can I clarify this for you? At the end, even if you do your questions all at the end, I suggest to my clients that they say, we're going to go into Q&A, and then I have one last great tip for you, or we're going to do one last great interactive exercise before you all go on to the next thing. And maybe you even say, I'm going to take 3 questions only. Contact me if you have other questions, because I want to make sure that we do one more thing before you leave. That's going to help people stay, because a lot of people, as soon as Q&A starts, particularly when it's a conference and it's breakout sessions, they get up and they run to the next thing, because they're like, I don't have any questions. I don't care what the questions are, and they leave. But if you give them that caveat, oh, there's something great still happening at the end, it's going to help people stay engaged all the way through the end and with those questions. Always remember to restate the question that was asked for the audience, particularly if they're not being mic'd. But even so, I would restate it and then answer it. And if you can get away without doing questions at the end and ending strong, that really is preferred, I believe, by most speakers, and honestly by organizers, if they would just break the mold and tell their speakers that they are expecting questions to be answered throughout, or we would like you to end with content rather than just questions, something like that. It really will help. If you have to be a conference organizer, I know for some reason the industry is, present your material and then Q&A. It doesn't really help. Most people can't get their audience back. It's really tough to answer questions in a way that keeps the audience engaged. I struggle with it myself. And if part of your goal is to sell from the floor at the end when it comes to the books and things, oftentimes that question answer kind of, it lowers the energy and the momentum that you've built during the presentation to get people to the back of the room to take your course or to buy your book or whatever it is. So if it's particularly a free presentation that you are giving, and part of it is, thanks. Stacy, today's tips were great. Oh, and we had another one. So Therese is here again. I need to hire you. Well, we can talk for sure. I'm sure you've heard a lot of my tips before, but for sure this is These are great ones today, I will say. I just think that beginning, middle, and end is so important. And how to keep that audience engaged is crucial. And sometimes you only have 2 or 3 minutes. If you're pitching for investors or something, you don't have that time. You've got your deck that you spent lots of money with consultants on, but have you practiced the actual talk? Maybe not. That's a problem. So there's a lot of reasons to follow up on that comment from Terry to, yeah, hire me to do something. Even if it's simply, here's a video of my last keynote, and you want me to comment on it. That is great. And you might hear my dog apparently needs water, so she's rattling her bowl right now. I didn't crate her today. But if you are thinking, I wonder, or the virtual talk that you're going to give, record it, send it to me. I'll look at it and I'll give you comments back. It could be as simple as that. It doesn't even have to be a real meeting. If you're a little shy about having me get right in there and work with you, that's a really great test to see if you want to go that next step. Okay, yeah, let's have that conversation now, because I want you to help me implement the suggestions that you're making. Or maybe you take it to a friend and you work on it. But I am always happy to look at your body language and see where your body language is supporting what you're saying and where your body language is undermining what you're saying, because that's something that takes an expert to look at, because we don't know and we're not trained in that. So the beginning, middle, and end, we will certainly work on. As I said, I work on that with everybody. And then we go into these nitty gritties, like, what is your body language saying about, and how are the words supporting what you say? Okay, everybody, it's already 8:22. We went a little long today. Definitely tune in next week, and probably October 5th we'll end up taking off. I'm having medical surgery on the 4th, which we don't have to necessarily worry about. It's just I will still be in recovery on the 5th, so I doubt I will be coming to you live. I might try to do some kind of recorded thing. We'll see. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see you back here next time. And just go out there and be true to you. Should I keep trying out that tagline? Tell me if you like it. Bye, everyone.